Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have Terry Pilkerton, who is here to give you some really valuable information for our summer months. I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to be monitoring our chat box. So if you have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box, and we'll have some time at the end to address some of your questions. If we don't, we definitely will make sure that we email you those responses. And also at the end of the webinar, we do have a survey that's going to pop up. And if you wouldn't mind filling out this survey, kind of giving us some feedback on this webinar, we would really appreciate it. We really want to make sure that the topics that we are providing and the information that we are providing to you is relevant and useful. So please take just a couple of minutes to fill out that survey at the end of the webinar. Again, it's 12:01, so I think everybody is starting to log on. We're going to give it about 30 more seconds. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Tina Norris, and she's just going to give you a little brief intro before we get started.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I'm Tina Norris, and I'm the Family Engagement Specialist here at PETSI. And for those of you who are joining us who don't know who we are, I'll give you a quick snippet of who PETSI is. PETSI is a statewide nonprofit whose passion is to empower families in Virginia. And our central focus is on families with children with disabilities. We provide a number of services to families, including individual phone consultations, workshops, and webinars. We do on-demand trainings. We have a host of topical fact sheets and a variety of other resources that we share with families to support them as they navigate the special education maze. If you have not visited our website, I would encourage you to please do so to learn a little bit more about who we are. And I'm excited today that we actually have Terry Pilkerton joining us with this wonderful topic on maintaining structure and rhythm for your child during the summer months. And Terry is a resident psychotherapist who works with individuals with a wide range of emotional and psychological difficulties, including anxiety, depression, emotional regulation, ADHD, autism, and OCD. So you are in for a tremendous treat. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Terry, and after she concludes, I will come back online to speak with you again. Terry, you can take it away.
Thank you, Tina. I am so excited to be here today. I wish I could see you all, but I can't, so that's okay. I had spoken with Tina a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling her how much I like PETSI and how much I appreciate everything that PETSI has done for me. About 16 years ago, I had a little girl, and she had a lot of developmental delays, and I was lost. I wasn't getting what I needed from the school system for her moving in, and I called PETSI, and they simply gave me the language to use. And in my particular case, my daughter had some attentional issues, and they simply said, just write to the principal and say, my daughter is having some attentional issues, which is affecting her ability to learn. And lo and behold, the principal was in touch with me, and it opened the door to a bunch of services that I likely would not have gotten through the school system. So I cannot appreciate more what PETSI did for me and does for the community. My presentation today is about how to handle summer with your children at home, especially those with special needs. Children with special needs in particular thrive on structure. which is particularly difficult during the summer months, especially these summer months. There's not a lot of options for us. We are in a time of grief and loss, all of us. And I can't stress enough how much we are probably affected by that without even realizing it. So anything that we feel, any kind of anxiety, anything is just compounded exponentially. So if you're feeling that way, you're not alone. And don't be afraid to talk to somebody about it if you need to get help, whatever you need. This time that that we're in, I would describe as a time of ambiguous loss. An ambiguous loss is a feeling of loss that's unclear, and there's no resolution or closure to it because we're just not sure what's going to happen. There's not a defining point. There's not a reason. It just makes everything that much harder, this vagueness. So my advice, whenever there is a sense of vagueness and uncertainty, especially with regard to your children, we need to, what I call tighten the rhythm. Rhythm is a daily, weekly, yearly kind of structure, but structure with flexibility. So for daily structure, it might mean a certain schedule, which helps to instill an inner rhythm. So we have the outside schedule and structure, which helps to create the child inner rhythm so that it eventually goes from external to internal. So let's get started. I'm going to move. Oh my goodness, I'm having trouble here with my, okay, good. So like I was saying, structure and rhythm will set you free. The reason structure is so important for your child is that the daily routine, what you set up for them each day, creates rhythm. It creates a sense of rhythm for them, for you. Within rhythm becomes a certain sense of security and control over your environment. Rhythm also bonds the family together. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day that we don't really take time to just be together in a purposeful and meaningful way. And by kind of putting that on a schedule, it creates that. And that's something that is invaluable, that no one, it's just something that we will treasure for the rest of our lives. It also establishes expectations. Your child really does need to know what's going on, what's going to happen in advance. Creates a calmer household. It gives your child a sense of security, which lends itself to confidence and independence. It also establishes healthy, constructive habits. And it also helps us as parents remember each day what's important. And it does provide an opportunity for special daily rituals, such as the family time together. I know for us, even though my youngest child is 16, we have set aside time each evening to play a game together as a family. And that's been such a beautiful thing for all of us. And again, structure, rhythm, tightening the rhythm offers a sense of stability during this time of change, and stress, and uncertainty. So how do we create structure? First of all, we need to establish what needs to be accomplished and approximately what time. Again, we don't want to be rigid because that could also cause our children to become nervous and feel uneasy. A lot of times when we feel uneasy, they feel uneasy. They definitely pick up on that. So an example of things that we want to fit into each day would be mealtime exercise, reading, Some people want to include prayer. A lot of it, you want to look at what do I value, what do I want, and then ultimately, and then build that into your child's daily routine. So what we want to do is not just say we're going to go to bed, bedtime is on the schedule. We also need to outline the specific steps. So here I have brush your teeth, wash your face, read one bedtime story, and then we turn off the light. So the steps to create a schedule. Use whatever form of schedule they like. Some children like a storyboard. Some children have what we call a social story, which might be a book that they create, that they draw, and kind of outlines each step. It may have pictures of them in it. You might want to post something on the wall with pictures. You might want to just have a checklist, whatever they respond to the most. Some people have moved to videos. I never did that, mainly because it was a long time ago, but if that works for you, whatever it is, be creative. There's no right or wrong thing to do here. Timers and alarms. My children grew up hearing timers and alarms go off all the time. And I think sometimes when they had friends over, their friends were like, well, what was that? And so it became part of our daily rhythm to have timers and alarms. And we needed that in order to delineate, okay, now we're done playing. Now it's time to do 10 minutes of work. I also had what I called library time, which meant quiet time for me to read a book. And it gave me a little break. It gave them some quiet time to read, to learn, and to kind of entertain themselves. So it's important for children also to learn to self-regulate and not to always turn to us for entertainment and a sense of what to do and how to regulate. We eventually want them to be able to do that for themselves. So the basic plan of the day, I also like to look at it, is acts like the frame. So you think of structure as a framework to a house. And that's essential because it kind of holds everything together. So this is kind of, if you want to visualize what a schedule does for you. Okay, so, and then again with the structure, another thing you want to do is refer to the schedule. A lot of times your children take security, and I like to have them go over to it themselves. Kind of, if they're in a state of chaos and upset, and a lot of times transitions were a big issue for me, I would say, okay, well, let's see what we put on the schedule. So the onus is on the schedule, not on you, not on them. So there's no room for disagreement. It's like, okay, well, right now it's time to brush our teeth. So that's what we need to do right now. We always want to provide praise, praise and compliment 4 times for every 1 time that we need to redirect them. Reinforcement is extremely important. So we want to give them autonomy over the schedule as much as possible. We also want to be consistent. And here I wrote complete every step of the routine every time. And I don't like that. Honestly, I wrote it and then I'm like, no. We don't want to be rigid. We want to be patient with ourselves and our children. It's all a learning curve. And nothing happens on a straight line. It's just all part of the process. And we want to be relaxed and we want to be okay with whatever is. So some creative things to do here. And I did include a list of resources, some links to online resources. And of course, as I'm sure you know, there are millions of links out there of things to do at home. Pinterest is a great resource. So these are some things that I know I always like to include in my daily rhythm with my children. Exercise, even as a daily walk as a family is a good thing. Just being out in the sun a little bit is good for them. And I know with my children, there were times when I had a hard time getting them to go out, especially once they started school. So I started what I call a green hour, which meant a time out of doors, no electronics. And we had a little saying, no greens, no screens. So that meant first we do our green time, first we go outside and play, and then we can come in and we can have some screen time. And what I found a lot of the time was that they would go outside and they would play for 2 hours, and then they would come up and they would say, Mommy, is my green time over? Because once they get started on that, they generally enjoy it. But it is really hard in this day and age to find a way to put that into place. So I think things like that, maybe no greens, no screens, green hour, all of those things are a good thing to maybe put into place. Arts and crafts, there's natural art. I like things like that. I think it gives them a sense of groundedness, a sense of their environment. Rocks, leaves, anything like that. I've seen recently with the COVID epidemic and the Black Lives Matter, people painting on rocks, little words of encouragement. And I find that really sweet. So when I'm taking a walk or riding along the bike path, I see them, and I think that's a really sweet thing to do. Making your own Play-Doh has always been a wonderful thing for us. Dry ice is more on the science part of it, and I do have a Pinterest link to show you how to do all of those things at home. It also gives the child a very good sensory experience because oftentimes they need that. So keep that in mind also when planning some of your activities. Books are great. If your child doesn't like to read alone, reading aloud is good. I would recommend both. I think depending on the age of your child, we need to have some alone time, some time to read alone and enjoy a story, and then other times to read together and come together again as a family. One game, Find the Puzzle Piece, that's kind of neat, is if you, depending on the age of your child, if you take maybe a 10-piece puzzle and take some pieces of the puzzle and maybe hide them around one room, and then make a game of finding all the pieces, putting them on the table, and then putting the puzzle together as a group can be fun for them too. And again, I posted links to all of these things. Okay, so again, it's the summer of COVID-19. I don't think any of us are going to forget this summer. Mindfulness is so important right now. In case you haven't heard what mindfulness is, it's an extremely simple concept. There's so many lessons and things out there on the internet to make you feel like it's not, but it is. It simply means focusing on the present. And I had a child describe it beautifully once, and what she said to me, mindfulness is doing what you're doing while you're doing it, knowing what you're doing while you're doing it. And basically that's exactly what it is. So often, especially now, we find ourselves doing something, but our brain is in a million different places. And actually we as humans are wired that way. But we want to become more present and simply notice our thoughts and feelings that helps us to sort things out. Right now, there are a lot of things going on that we may have feelings that we're not aware of. So we simply want to notice our thoughts and feelings without judging them. So for instance, feeling scared is not good or bad. It really is just a feeling, and feelings are not facts. It doesn't mean that you have to react to that fear. It doesn't mean the house is on fire just because it feels like it. It doesn't mean everything's all wrong just because you're thinking all of these thoughts. Thoughts are not facts, and feelings are not facts. We simply notice them without judgment. We might want to label it thought. We might want to label it feeling. We might want to call it what it is. Maybe that feeling is fear. Maybe that feeling is anxiety. And then gently return ourselves back to the present. We want to do that over and over. It's all about beginning again, beginning again. We get distracted, and then we go back and we begin again. It's good for you also to check in with your children each day. I had a patient today tell me that she was going through numbers with her child that's 3 years old, and her child pointed to the number 19 and said, "Oh, that's the number of the big sickness." And the mom was shocked, and she said, "I really do my best to keep her away from the news, but she knew that. It made me wonder." And what I would say then is to check in with them in a way that's simple and appropriate. We don't want to give them too much information, but we might just want to say, tell me about that. And then just let it go. But they might be having feelings, and they might be having their own anxiety, and they may sense that you don't want them to talk about it with them. So we always want to be open about that without oversharing. In terms of mindfulness, again, I did want to recommend an app that I use. It's called 10% Happier. And they also, the app costs about $90 a year to subscribe to, and it's worth it. They also have podcasts that are free, as well as a website, which has a lot of good resources on it. They did a whole lot in the beginning of the pandemic. There's tons of stuff as to how to deal with this, how to stay mindful and centered during this. The app does have a daily 10-minute meditation, and a lot of them are pertinent right now. You can kind of choose the meditation, but a lot of them are pertinent to exactly what we're going through now. And I find that extremely useful. Mindfulness for children can be a little different. We don't necessarily want to have them sit down and meditate. One thing that works for children is kind of squeezing their muscles. So you might want to have them close their eyes and then squeeze their feet, kind of scrunch their toes together, and then up to their thighs and their arms, and then their hands, and then their head, and then slowly relax each part as you go. That's also a really good way to help children get to sleep at night. Blowing bubbles is really a nice meditative and mindful activity. We might want to put our worries in a bubble. So they might want to name a bubble a worry, and then blow it out in a bubble, and then simply watch the worry go away. A mindful walk in nature is really good. So when we're in nature, we want to just notice our surroundings. We want to notice the trees. We might talk about what kind of tree that is. We might want to touch the leaf. We might want to think about our feet on the ground. We can feel our feet on the ground. And again, your mind is going to wander in a million directions, but you want to just gently bring it back to where you are, noticing your surroundings, noticing the sounds that you're hearing, and maybe helping your child as well to notice those things. Coloring is a nice thing. There are a lot of mandalas online with just not really pictures, but just different designs. And it's really nice and meditative sometimes just to sit down and color and focus on the colors and focus on the pattern. It is very important to limit our consumption of social media and news. I try to do 10 minutes a day at the most. There's a lot of sensationalism on there and a lot of worst case scenarios. There's a lot of it is out of our control if we're doing everything we can. So we want to kind of focus on what we can control. You know, what I can control is washing my hands, covering my face. And if we're doing that, that's what we can do. We can control our attitude about it. But we don't want to get too caught up in that. Social media has also been a big source, I'm hearing, of stress for people. A lot of it with the Black Lives Matter movement. They're feeling this anxiety to post and repost, and there's this anxiety that they're not doing enough. And it seems like we get caught up in that worry cycle. We're not able to do anything because we're so stressed out and so worried. So I would also limit consumption of social media. We do want to stay in touch with our friends and family. It's unfortunately, it has to be virtually right now, but I think it's really important, even if you don't think you're gonna feel like it. I know for me, I have some people scheduled in, and the time comes, the day comes, and I think, gosh, there's so many other things I need to be doing right now. But when I do take that time to sit down with my friends, I'm always feeling more relaxed and more centered. And I have more of a sense of normalcy than I did before. It kind of just takes you back. It's kind of almost like a therapy, and we need to build that into our lives right now. Speaking of therapy, I myself and just about every other mental health provider is available via telehealth. I think a lot of people went into it reluctantly, thinking it's not going to work, and they're finding they like it actually much better. I find people who were coming in twice a month now wanting to come in every week because it's easy. They don't have to commute. They don't have to take too much time away from work or home. One thing that has really surprised me is that the telehealth has worked out with my young patients. I traditionally, when we would offer telehealth only when someone was sick or had a problem or couldn't get into the office. And I would generally, if a child's not feeling well, I would tell the parents to hold off and we'll just cancel the appointment until the child is better. We don't have that opportunity now. So we've gone ahead and we've done some virtual therapy, and it's worked out really well. There's a lot of things that we can play over the Zoom, which is actually really surprising to me that it worked out, but it can. So if your child is feeling really stressed out and you feel like they need another person to talk to, I would definitely recommend looking for someone online for them. I do have some online resources here. I found a couple of online books for children to kind of talk about the coronavirus in a way that they understand and that's helpful for them. It kind of can quell their anxiety about it. And maybe it can help you to explain it in a way that you're not worried about. I think a lot of us are worried about, are we oversharing? Are we, how do we approach this? What should we say? What should we not say? And these are books developed by experts that will help guide you in the right direction. So for you, it's really important right now to take care of yourself. I think that we often put ourselves last, and we can't do that. There's a saying about putting on your own oxygen mask before you can help other people. And that's just really true. We have to do that. We can't go in depleted and anxious ourselves and be able to take care of our children. So that involves some daily exercise. I use YouTube for Pilates. There are a lot of people who provide a series of Pilates exercises. The one that I use has exercise routines from 10 to 50 minutes. So if there's a day when I only have 10 minutes, then I put that one on. But I find that it really, really helps. You may want to start that with your children. There are a number of YouTube videos on family yoga, for example, which I think is really nice and helps to establish a sense for the children moving forward. It's kind of a life skill. Yoga is something that is good for our body and our minds throughout our life. Again, we talked about mindfulness. Whatever you can do, you can use an app, 10 minutes. I find that I don't always have time or take time. So what I do in the morning is I'll turn on the app and I'll listen to it, but I might be making my coffee. I don't think mindfulness has to be sitting down in a position with your eyes closed. I think that's great. But for me, it's a matter of focusing on what I'm doing when I'm doing it. So I'm focusing on making my coffee, focusing on, making sure the kitchen's in order. So it still works. It's still effective. So you don't want to have to carve out time necessarily if you don't have that time. We want to try to fit things into our daily rhythm of our lives. We want to manage our own anxiety. We need to notice that first. A lot of times we don't realize how anxious we are. We might realize that we're barking at the kids a lot, that we're stressed out, that we're eating too much, that we're drinking too much. But we don't necessarily make the connection between I'm anxious, I need to get to the core of that, and I need to work on managing my anxiety. Again, limit consumption of the news, stay in touch virtually, making plans. I think for me, it's been a lifesaver to plan activities. Again, I plan the virtual dates. More recently, I've been going kayaking some places. Fletcher's Boathouse in DC has opened back up, and they have a very careful system regulating the amount of people that are there. So I might make plans with some neighbors just to kind of meet them there, wave to them while we're in the kayak together. That's been really important. It's been nice to have something to look forward to. Again, it lends itself to some normalcy, some exercise, and some social time with friends. We do want to keep children in the loop as just as appropriate in a very simple and basic way. Often they do know what's going on. They know when something's wrong. So we don't want to pretend nothing's wrong when it is. But again, we want to keep it very, very simple. Again, we want to check in with them, kind of ask them how they're feeling, not in a way that assumes that they're feeling anxious. We never want to say, "Are you feeling anxious?" Because oftentimes they think that's the answer that we want to hear from them. So if they mention something about the sickness, about the virus, about Black Lives Matter, you just want to say, what are you thinking about that? What's that like for you? Also, we want to relax their standards. This is not the time that we're going to have a pristine house. We might be watching Elmo and Sesame Street a lot more than we used to. It's okay. You know, it's not a normal time. Summer itself is not a normal time, especially with kids. So we need to not put so much pressure on ourselves. The importance is that we're happy and enjoying each other's time together and our children. And we also don't want to be afraid to ask for help. I know some people have asked some college students who are stuck home, maybe one that's trusted that you're sure is quarantining in a safe way, to maybe be someone to come over to attend to the kids, to maybe do some light housekeeping for you, or some counseling, again. But we don't want to be afraid to ask for help. I find that a lot of caregivers feel a sense of inadequacy by reaching out. And we all need help sometimes, and it's okay to ask for it. So here's some online resources, and here is my contact information. So before we go on to questions, my takeaway is to tighten the rhythm. And by that, again, we don't mean a rigid schedule, but just to kind of have a thoughtful rhythm throughout the day. And if it's not enough, if it doesn't feel like enough to do just the regular bedtime meal routine, you might want to add something in on a weekly basis. Like I know for us, we used to do sushi every Tuesday. So you might want to have sushi night on Tuesday. You might want to have pasta on Wednesday. Friday might be pizza and a movie. Thursday might be a vegetarian night. So any kind of rhythm, routine, consistency will give your child a sense of security and safety that they need. I think that's about it. I'd like to hear from you if we have time for questions. Looks like we have about, oh, actually, it looks like we're running out of time. So I'm going to let Tina take it away.
Thank you so much, Terry, for this. The information was very valuable, and I want to thank everyone that signed up and took a part of this powerful information. Terry, I'm looking, and we just had one comment in the chat session. Karen said, "Thank you, Terry, for mentioning caregivers. I believe we all need reminding to take care of ourselves." So that was a great reminder for everyone. I do want to remind you to take a moment at the conclusion of today's webinar to answer the survey questions. Also, I will be emailing you all the PowerPoint in a PDF format, so you'll have that. And also, once we have the video closed captioned, I will be sending that out to everyone also. Since there are no questions, Again, Terry's contact information will be, it's here on the screen, but it will also be in the information that you receive. So I would encourage you to reach out to her if you have specific questions or you want to learn any more information about anything that she shared. So again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Terry, thank you again for sharing your wisdom, and we certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.